Voters in Nigeria go to the polls to select 29 state governors. Political pressure piles on Algerian President Bouteflika to dissuade him from seeking another term. And why recent gains by Khalifa Haftar's army are causing anxiety in the Libyan capital, Tripoli. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Cyril Nta, live in Nairobi. And to those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines this hour. The latest efforts to normalize ties between the European Union and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we look into some important milestones registered by women across the continent. And we begin in Nigeria, where state elections have closed. Voters in the West African country have cast their votes to elect 29 governors and 36 state assembly members. But as CGTN Samson O'Malley reports, domestic observers are expressing concerns over low voter turnout.
2 weeks after they voted in presidential elections, Nigerians are back to elect leaders at the state level.
Voter turnout in this governorship election is low compared to the presidential elections held 2 weeks ago. However, the Independent National Electoral Commission appears to have improved on its logistics as voting started right on schedule because voting materials arrived on time.
Voters said the results of the presidential elections appear to have kept many voters away.
Last time, we are more than 1,000 people here. But today, look at everything. We are not even up to 500. Because it is so frustrated that we voted here last time with card reader. And we organize ourselves so peaceful. But after everything, I will come out to hear that they cancel our votes.
Why was it cancelled? We don't know. Why?
I am not happy of the turn-off of people. People do not turn up this time. I don't know the reason, but I've called my brothers and sisters so that they will call their people too, so that they will come out and vote. Because this time, the vote must count.
Election observers say the low voter turnout could impact negatively on the outcome of the elections.
If the mobilization to get voters is not credible, it's not fair enough, it's not equitable, it means that at the end of the day, the verdict may just be the verdict of the minority and not the verdict of the majority.
The presidential elections 2 weeks ago were marred by the late arrival of ballot papers, boxes, voting materials, and the failure of smart card readers. The electoral body is claiming that the governorship election were better organized.
The other election, that is the presidential election and the National Assembly election, we had more challenges of the smart card readers. But this time around, there are very, very few. And the conduct itself of the electorate is much better.
Saturday's election is expected to be a street fight down party lines between President Buhari's All Progressive Congress Party and the opposition People's Democratic Party. Samson O'Malley, CGTN, Jos, Nigeria.
Well, 91 political parties are taking part in the local polls, which are expected to renew political rivalry between the ruling APC and the main opposition PDP parties. Here's CGTN's Deji Badmus with more.
Voting started quite early in quite a number of polling stations across the country, and like what was witnessed during the presidential election 2 weeks ago. This time, polling officials and materials arrived quite early at some of the polling units. Of course, there are a number of states where the process got off quite late. A good example is Lagos, where a logistics problem by the election regulator delayed voting by more than 2 hours in some places. Now, extra security have been deployed to some states that are considered flashpoints, like Rivers in the southern part of the country, which witnessed most of the violence in the last presidential election. It's still too early to tell what the turnout would be, but the expectation is that it might be higher than the presidential election because this is a local election where most of the candidates are directly known to the electorate. Now, the election is happening across the country, but only in 29 states. And in some cases, as many as 64 candidates are vying for the position of governor in one state alone. Governors of the remaining 7 states are yet to complete their terms in office, and that is why election would not be taking place there. Now, the exercise has so far progressed smoothly. In some of the polling units were visited, and people have been expressing their happiness that were able to vote peacefully.
Today, honestly, they really impressed us because I was expecting it to be like the other time. They came around 11 o'clock, but they were here before 8. So they really performed excellently this time.
One of the key states to watch in this election is Lagos. The ruling APC has been in power here since the return of democracy in Nigeria in 1999. It's one state the main opposition PDP has campaigned vigorously in the past to take, especially when it was in power at the center for 16 years, but just did not manage to do so. The state still remains firmly in the grips of the APC, so everyone is watching to see if this is the year that firm grip will be broken. But by the way, apart from the APC and PDP, there are 43 other candidates on the governorship ballot here. So fair enough to say the Lagos voters are spoiled for choice. Deji Badmo, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Let's go to Algeria, where authorities have ordered an early start to the spring university holiday in an attempt to weaken student-led protests against President Abdelaziz Bouteflika that have been taking place for the past 2 weeks. The Higher Education Ministry has brought forward spring break by 10 days, starting on Sunday instead of March the 20th. The decision comes a day after thousands of Algerians took to the streets across the country to demonstrate against Bouteflika. CGTN's Tuli Shabalala has more.
This is the biggest protest to be held in the capital city of Algiers in 28 years. Thousands of Algerians showed up demanding that President Abdelaziz Bouteflika steps down. Riot police blocked the road leading to the presidential palace. They fired tear gas to disperse demonstrators from getting close to the facility.
I am so glad to see that people are aware and act peacefully. I hope that this fight will continue.
The country's state TV is reporting that security forces have so far detained 195 protesters, citing offences such as looting as grounds for the arrests.
Today, women are here to say that they also contribute to the liberation and the change of this country.
Protests against Bouteflika have been escalating since he made public his intentions to run for a 5th term during the April 18th elections. The Algerian president is currently in Switzerland for a medical checkup. He had a stroke in 2013 that confined him to a wheelchair, and since then he has rarely appeared in public. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
Let's now head to Libya, where there are fears of Tripoli falling to Eastern forces. This follows advances by the forces under General Khalifa Haftar, which have recently taken control of much of the country's south and the remaining oil fields. Here's more on this story. Let's take a listen.
75-year-old Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army has gained significant ground. Advancing from the east, the forces recently swept through southern Libya and reinforced a base in the center of the vast North African nation. And this is what is keeping the UN-backed government of Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj on edge. Haftar's advances, it is being feared, could compromise unification efforts. The fate of Tripoli might also be at risk. Although Haftar enjoys support in the east, his advances are not sitting well with some Libyans.
We do not want the return of military rule and a new dictatorship. We want a civil state with a constitution and sovereignty that respects the law.
There is no place for military rule in Libya. We're not against the military or police or the law. We're calling for the application of the constitution and fair elections. Whoever thinks they can win can run, and we will respect the winner.
We will not accept the return to the military and family rule. after we've sacrificed so many martyrs. The sacrifices will be more than in 2011. We have the weapons, the technology, and the experience.
Since 2014, Khalifa Haftar has been fighting to be recognized as the overall commander of the Libyan military. Efforts to unite Haftar and Fayez al-Sarraj's administrations have been ongoing for years. However, the negotiated process has encountered numerous challenges. It appears like this has prompted Haftar to try and consolidate areas under his direct control. Libya has been in a state of instability since the ouster of longtime leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Michael Karanja, CGTN.
You are watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have a lot more news coming your way after the break, including third attack on Ebola treatment centers in DR Congo leaves one policeman dead. And we look at some important milestones registered by women across the continent.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. We now head to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where at least one police officer has been killed in a fresh attack on another Ebola treatment center. The Saturday attack in Butembo in North Kivu happened hours before the arrival of World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. According to witnesses, several militiamen were involved in the raid. The incident is the latest in a string of attacks targeting Ebola treatment centers. And medical NGO Medicine Sans Frontiers is calling for a multilateral approach to tackle the Ebola outbreak in the DRC. Meanwhile, the Democratic Republic of Congo and the European Union have embarked on efforts to restore ties. A European visa center that was closed for 13 months during former President Kabila's rule has been reopened. Relations soured last year after the EU renewed sanctions on senior Congolese officials for reportedly cracking down on protests and delaying the election. CGTN's Chris Ochambringa has more on that story.
The reopening of the European Visa Center in Kinshasa marked the start of the normalization of ties between the new DRC government and the European Union. The center had been closed for 13 months by the government of former President Joseph Kabila in retaliation to EU sanctions against senior Congolese officials. In 2016, the EU imposed the sanctions on government officials over the violent crackdown on protests and the delay in organizing elections. Mr. Kabila's chosen successor, Emmanuel Ramazani Shadari, was one of them. The former government consequently expelled the EU ambassador to the DRC over the renewal of those sanctions. But President Felix Tshisekedi promised to ensure the return of the EU ambassador after he was declared the winner of the disputed election. He stressed the importance of having a partnership based on mutual respect. The EU has supported the DRC in restoring peace, democracy, and its healthcare system over the years. Chris Ochambringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
In South Africa, African Union organs based in the country have co-hosted a gender roundtable to mark the International Women's Day. The event focused on women's perspectives on refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons. CGTN's Yolisa Njamela has more.
The theme for International Women's Day this year is Think Equal. Build smart, innovate for change. It's meant to put innovation by women and girls for women and girls at the heart of efforts to achieve gender equality.
This theme will ensure debate around women's and girls' needs and experiences which will be integrated at the very inception of technology and innovations. It means building smart solutions that go beyond acknowledging the gender gaps to address the needs of men and women equally as indicated by the UN Women. As we focus on the United Nations theme for this year, let us not forget our own theme, the African Union theme for 2019, which is refugees, returnees, and internally displaced persons.
According to the African Union, Africa hosts over 6 million refugees and just over 14 million internally displaced persons.
These forcibly displaced persons are vulnerable to abuse, exploitation, and violations. Conflicts, natural disasters, the effects of climate change, and other factors have left many civilians in need of humanitarian assistance, among which women and children form the majority. Their situation is critical and access to key services considerably limited.
Africa has and continues to make strides in achieving gender equality, but a lot more still needs to be done.
Women represent more than half of Africa's 1.2 billion population, yet they face economic exclusion, gender-based violence, and harmful cultural practices.
The African Union, in partnership with the United Nations and other like-minded organizations, continue to advocate for women's equal rights.
UNHCR prioritizes sexual and gender-based violence prevention and response throughout its programs. We engage communities, we facilitate the access of women to goods and services, and we provide victims with health and psychological support as well as legal aid.
TAPSOBA further emphasizes that collaboration between various organizations will go a long way in ensuring that women's issues are prioritized. Yolisa Njamela for CGTN in Pretoria, South Africa.
As part of activities marking this year's International Women's Day, Google has announced the launch of what it calls 18 new Women Will chapters across sub-Saharan Africa. Women Will seeks to create economic opportunity for women everywhere so that they can grow and succeed. CGTN's Deji Batmas has been talking with Juliet Ehimoan Chiazor, the country director of Google in Nigeria. For more insights, let's take a look.
It's very important to create the enabling environment for technology growth and for people to be able to participate in the digital economy. And that's why it's important to have affordable internet, because that's the starting point. People getting online gives them the opportunity to then take advantage of the tools that are available online. And there are a number of initiatives by Google, by other stakeholders within the private sector, and by government to address this. One of the things that we've done recently, last year, we announced the launch of Google Station, which is a free public Wi-Fi access initiative in collaboration with ISPs, and we're open to partnering with telecom operators as well. And this is providing high-speed free internet access to people in public locations. There have been other initiatives as well, providing internet access to schools, also in collaboration with ISPs, partnering with OEMs to bring down the cost of smartphones so that more people can afford them and be able to engage in that way. And it's an ongoing effort. It'll be great. The cost of data right now is still high relative to average income of the population, and it'll be great to be able to drive down these prices, working jointly with all stakeholders in the industry and the regulator as well. So there's been some progress over the years, but there is still a huge gap. And we really need to look at this from the grassroots. So it's like a pyramid, right? If we want to increase the number of women that participate in technology and bubble to the top, we need to increase the base at the pyramid, which means we need to make sure that more girls have access to education. We need to ensure that more girls are given the opportunity to express themselves, to go after their dreams, right? when we have, situations around, child marriages, or we have situations where in some societies, education for the girl child is frowned upon, when you have situations where in some cases girls are, giving negative messaging around, what is expected from them and how far they can go, all these signals get embedded in the subconscious, and this affects the population at the base of people that even get into the game in the first place, right? And that subsequently reduces the number of people that, feel that confidence to be able to go for careers in technology and rise to the top.
In Côte d'Ivoire, a young blogger is gaining attention for being among the top 50 influencers in the country. Her social actions through digital technologies have earned her a spot as one of the most important figures in Côte d'Ivoire's digital sphere. Let's take a look.
I have always been passionate about science fiction and everything that stems from it, such as movies, technology, futuristic sciences, robots, and many others. While studying economics, I started working with my sister who was in audiovisual production. And as I was working with her, I discovered the internet. Then I discovered blogs. And that's how it all started, in 2005 and 2006.
Edith Braw's simple, fast, and fun platform has attracted many subscribers. She is one of Côte d'Ivoire's digital pioneers. In 2011, she founded the first women's webzine after she became president of the Bloggers Association of Côte d'Ivoire. Her social networks boast a community of more than 50,000 people. Through her notoriety, Edith has also founded a startup, producing her own projects.
My company is an agency that manages social networks including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and many others for companies. We also provide public relations management for our clients. We do brand content or personal branding.
Edith has won several awards, including the 2018 ICT Women's Digital Entrepreneurship Special Award. As a web activist, she and her partners aim to promote the emancipation of women through digital technology.
This is really not the time for us women to stand back. We have role models, we have examples. This is the occasion for us to seize this opportunity, because no one will come to hold our hands and lead us to development and empowerment. There are already women who are doing well. We may not necessarily work with them, but we can be inspired by what they do. And today Edith is one of them. Many do not work with her, but she is a model from which one can learn to become an influential woman in future as well.
Digital technology has a major impact on women's empowerment. It is a multiplying factor. Women now have the opportunity through a tool such as the telephone and internet to train and learn new skills from the comfort of their homes and even try new recipes.
Through her foundation, she hopes to support and train young women in the field of ICTs. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
Time now for another short break, but when we return, we have your sports news. Here's a look at what's ahead. We hear from Claudio Ranieri following his appointment at AS Roma.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. We start with football action in the Confederation of African Football Champions League. It resumes this weekend. Joint Group A leaders Mamelodi Sundowns host Nigeria's Lobi Stars. The South African outfit is currently on 7 points, while their opponents are at bottom of the group with 4. The other late kickoff sees JS Saoura take on Simba of Tanzania in Group D. Algeria Saoura sit in 3rd after 4 matches played and could leapfrog their opponents into 2nd place with a win. The U.S. women's national soccer team sued the U.S. Soccer Federation on Friday, accusing it of gender discrimination. This comes just 3 months before the team opens its World Cup title defense in France. The lawsuit also comes 3 years after several players filed a similar complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The issues brought up in the lawsuit include the medical treatment and coaching they receive, as well as how often they play and the way in which they travel to matches. The U.S. women's team has enjoyed unparalleled success in international soccer, including 3 World Cup titles and 4 Olympic gold medals. Italian soccer club AS Roma has appointed Claudio Ranieri as their new coach, replacing Eusebio Di Francesco. The club made the announcement on Friday, just hours after the Italian arrived in Roma. The Roma boss Eusebio Di Francesco was sacked on Thursday following their disappointing exit at the hands of FC Porto